So here's a fairly short presentation for you on Lightroom and Print to File. So if you've not used Lightroom and Print to File before, you can find it a fairly easy way to generate an A3 or an A4 image to be printed. Of course, with A3 images, they could be slightly smaller than the full A3 size if they're a square image or a panoramic or landscape image on, say, a 2:1 ratio or 2.5:1 ratio. Images on A4 are the minimum size, of course, for all prints to be submitted. And just as a reminder, let's look at the next slide, which does identify the rules for 2021. So this is drawn directly from the 2021 rules on print sizing. I won't read it all out, just make sure you read it and understand it. But it's not overly complex because, as I say, the maximum size of a print is A3 size. The minimum is A4 size. And so panorama type images or square images are bigger than A4 and smaller than A3 in terms of total size. But the following presentation perhaps will give you some examples of how that fits and how that works. Okay, so I'm in Lightroom. I've got 5 images I want to get printed to submit into competition. These are not necessarily the images I'm going to submit, by the way, but they're just 5 sample images. I have set up a small folder to put these 5 images together, and you'll see why this is beneficial shortly. And you can see I've got a couple of variations of portrait and landscape and panoramic and square. Now the idea is to give the person who's printing my images, and mostly Steve and Ange do mine, I want to give them a file preset to maximum A3 or minimum A4 size. And to make it easy for them, I'm going to use the print save to file. And if you've used this in Lightroom before, that's great. If you haven't, you might find this an easy way to order a couple of prints from somebody who wants to do some printing for you. So first of all, I'm in the library area. I've got these 5 images here. I'm going to select the first image, which is the bird. It's in portrait format, and I'm going to click on print. Now it just so happens it's preset to A3, which is good, and it's preset to a portrait format. But sometimes, depending on what your last activity was doing, it might come up like this. That's okay. It just means that your paper is set to landscape, your image is set to portrait. I want the image to be in a portrait format to use the maximum size of my paper. It's as easy as that. You can see the shaded grey area around the outside. That is the border size. How do I know that? Because here, if you look at the cell size, the size of the inside the grey area, that's less than the full A3 size of an A3 sheet of paper. So there's a guaranteed minimum border there. I just want to make sure that I'm maximizing that page. Yep. You can see that this image is slightly less than a full A3 size. From memory, it's a 4:6 ratio. Yes, it's a 4:6 ratio, which is just slightly narrower than a full A3 size, and that's fine. So as I scroll down, my margins are at maximum. Sometimes they can be adjusted or fiddled with or played with if you're doing a previous project or activity. And I go down into this area that now says print job. So I ignore all of this watermarking and page options. And under print job, I'm going to save to a JPEG file. I'm not printing, I don't have one, I'm saving to a JPEG file. Resolution, 300 ppi. I also need to put this image up into the club website as a DPI image. And so whether I put it up as 72 dpi or 300 dpi doesn't matter. But for printing, it's important 300 ppi. I've got my JPEG quality set at 100. I've got no reason to set it less than that unless somebody can tell me otherwise. So it's set at 100. Color management. This can be a debate. I've got it at the moment set for sRGB. You could have it set for Adobe RGB or ProPhoto RGB. Talk to the person who's printing your images and ask them if they have a preference, because they're the ones who are doing the printing for you. But for the moment, let's leave this as sRGB. So I'm going to print to file. So I want a JPEG file now to give to the person who's printing for me. Now remember, this file is not the one that you can load up into the website, because the one to the website has got to be a maximum 2 meg file, and a couple of other variations. So this is the one I'm going to get printed. So click print to file. Let's call this sample 1 because I did something before. I already had sample 1 in there. Save. Yes, I want to replace it. So that file now is ready to go. I can just send that away to my printer person and they'll print that on an A3. I may choose to trim a little bit of this white border off on the left-hand side, right-hand side. I may not. But it meets the requirements of maximum A3 size print for competition. If I look at this one here, and yes, it's 3 ducks, you can see that the paper setting is for portrait, the image is landscape. I just go into page setup, I click on the landscape version, voila, there is my image ready to print. And again, you can see it's clearly a 4:6 ratio. It's slightly narrower than a full A3 size piece of paper. That's okay. It just gives me a slightly wider border at the top and the bottom. I'm not bothered by that. Again, I print to file. We'll call this for argument's sake sample 2. And again, I've used that before, so I'm just going to replace it and update it. So what about a panoramic image, say a 2:1 ratio? And you know, the rules would say that the width must be A3 size, the equivalent of an A3 size, and the height is specified as well. So this image is being preset to that. I mean, if I put this, for example, on an A4 piece of paper, that would not be a large enough print to submit for this type of image. So it can't be on A4, it's got to be on A3. It also can't be in this sort of format. Again, that the print would be too small. So it needs to be on A3 paper and it's got to be on landscape format. And because I fiddled around with this, you can see suddenly those margins have come right in. So I'm just going to go back up here to margins, make sure those margins are all back at the maximum, and see the cell size has shifted simply because I've been bouncing around between different things. I'm going to move those back to the maximum. I invariably want my cell size to be the maximum height and maximum width. You may have a reason why you want to have a bigger border, but you know, generally you would want this at full size. Bearing in mind, if you reduce the image, you can do that because it's still an A3 paper size, but that with a very large white border around it would seem perhaps a bit odd. But anyway, that's how you change the cell size if nothing else. So again, print to file. Again, let's call that sample 3 for argument's sake. Done. So I've now got 3 images I can send away. If I want a square image, remember 297 by 297, which is the A3 maximum size or the A3 minimum size or the A4 maximum size, if you want to get technical, but it's 297 by 297. Whether that is in portrait or landscape format, it makes no difference. That image is still going to be the same size. The print itself is, the printed part, the image itself is going to be the same size. It's going to be an A3 print paper, whether it's in landscape or in portrait format, makes no difference. So I just simply want to trim off some off the side or some off the top bottom, depending on the format. So again, print to file, save that as sample 4. Bob's your uncle, done. Now, I've done all this on A3. Why would I want to do an A4? Because A4 is quite small. It may be, you know, something like this image here on an A3 in terms of portrait format. Might just be a bit big. You know, I might have a couple of technical flaws in there that come very evident on a larger print. So it could be that I want this done on a nice, tidy A4 size. Bearing in mind, at the screen you can't see much of a difference, you know, but as that prints out, this would now print out to a standard A4 size. Again, you can see there's a bit of a border here at the top and the bottom extra. I just want to make sure that I've got the full sizes there. You can see that that bottom margin is a bit higher. Not too sure why. Probably, yep, I don't know why. But it just means I would trim again a bit off the bottom and a bit off the top. Actually, no, I can't do that, can I? Because A4 is the minimum size. So this, in actual fact, would be an A4 image on A4 printed paper, but the image would be within that. So I might need to go back and readjust the sizing of this particular image. Let's just see if I can do that very quickly. No, I've already preset that down to a size, so I may have to go back and just change the ratio of that image to fill up that A4 page a little bit more. But again, I would simply save that as sample 5, and I've now got all my images ready to go. So really it's a matter of start off in library. You don't have to put them into a little group. I can pick any image. For example, I can pick this image if I want. Because they're in the same folder area, go across to print, you can see those images are there. I can move that print in. I just look at page setup, A4 or A3, landscape or portrait, and as I fiddled around again, just make sure that those cell sizes are the maximum. Obviously this should be in portrait mode. You know, save the file, away I go. So that is an A3 printed image. Now, it's as difficult or as simple as that for me, and if you follow that process, go find yourself an image to print, talk to Angela and Steve or someone else who does printing in and around the club, and good luck with 2021. And if you've got any concerns, questions or queries, feel free to email or ring me. You take care for now. Bye.